If you're looking to buy a VR headset and not too sure whether to buy the Meta Quest 2 or Meta Quest 3, then this video is right for you because we're going to be comparing them both side by side, not just looking at the technical differences, but also what that difference means in the actual real world when you actually use them, so that by the end of this video, you'll know which one of these headsets is right for you. Plus, if you've already got a Quest 2, whether you should upgrade to a Quest 3. Welcome to my Tech Gear. Let's get into it. Now, first up, we're going to look at the noticeable design differences between the Quest 2 and the Quest 3, because size matters here, with the Quest 3 being 40% thinner than the Quest 2, or at least according to Meta. In real world, when you actually compare them side by side as they'd sit on your face, well, it's not quite 40%, but it is noticeably thinner. Now that means that weight is going to be closer to your face, which is a good thing because the Quest 3 is actually heavier than the Quest 2. The Quest 2 is 503 grams, whereas the Quest 3 is 515 grams. But because it is thinner, that weight is closer to your face, so when you actually wear it on your head, it actually feels lighter to wear. Moving on to the head strap here, and both of them come with an elasticated head strap out of the box. The one on the Quest 3 is a marginal improvement over the one that's on the Quest 2, because you have this distributed load sort of split on the back of the head strap, whereas on the Quest 2, it was just a single connection point. However, for me personally, that's a fairly low bar anyway, and I would recommend upgrading a head strap on either of those as soon as you possibly can. And there's plenty of companies in the market like Bobo VR, Kiwi Design, Zyber VR, and a whole bunch of others that are releasing new ones for the Quest 3 and already have ones in the market for the Quest 2. So that's probably the first accessory I would buy if you bought either of these headsets. There are other design differences between the headsets as well. So on the Quest, you will see the USB charging port and the 3.5mm audio jack are on the left side of the headset, whereas on the Quest 3, they've actually now integrated those into the arms of the headset itself. So you'll find the USB charging port on the left hand side with the 3.5mm audio jack on the right, which can actually be quite annoying if you decide to wear these with headphones, because most headphones have the connection point on the left ear cup. So now you've got to join the left ear cup to the right side of the headset. So it's a little bit annoying. Cameras have a difference here too, with the Quest 2 having 4 cameras on the front in the corners of the headset. On the Quest 3, we have 2 cameras on the bottom corners, but we also have 2 full color pass-through cameras and a depth sensor in the front. We'll get into the difference and what that means later on. Turning the Quest 3 over, and we've got a scroll wheel here for your IPD adjustability. You've got 3 charging pins, which makes the Quest 3 compatible with the wireless charging dock that Meta sell as well. Moving on to the controllers, and there is a noticeable big difference between the Quest 2 and the Quest 3, because the Quest 3 controllers have dropped the controller ring that was on the Quest 2, which makes the Quest 3 controller a far more compact controller than the Quest 2 one. Both of them still have the same power source, so both of them are charged by a single AA, and the battery life on both of these is really good. Slight difference is that the battery cover on the Quest 2 is just a magnetic sliding cover, which has caused some issues for some people with them sliding off during gameplay, whereas for the Quest 3, it's now kept in place by this press button at the top, which then just makes the cover come off, and then it clips back into place. Moving on to the internal differences between these two headsets. Now, the original Quest 2 came with a Snapdragon XR2 processor, and the Quest 3 comes with a Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2 processor. Now, that might sound like a minor change, but in pure power performance, it's a massive difference. The Quest 3 has 50% more graphical and CPU power than the Quest 2 does, and that could potentially make a big difference in the gaming section when we get to that. And it's not just the GPU power that is a difference here as well, because the Quest 2 is equipped with 6 GB of RAM, whereas the Quest 3 has 8 GB of RAM. So the differences in the graphical power and the amount of memory means that games on the Quest 3 should load faster, run faster, and with more texture and more details in them as well. Storage wise, both of the base models of these are the same. They're both a 128 GB model. However, the upper tier model has a 256 model on the Quest 2 and a 512 GB model on the Quest 3. Picture quality sees a big difference between these two as well, because the Quest 3 has 30% higher resolution than the Quest 2. Pair that up up with the fact that the Quest 3 comes with pancake lenses rather than the Fresnel lenses that are on the Quest 2, which means you're not going to have God rays or any sunbursts coming into your lenses, and you also get a larger sweet spot with the pancake lenses compared to the Fresnel ones. The field of view, so your field of vision when you're looking through the headset, is 110 degrees on the Quest 3 compared to the 97 degrees on the Quest 2. Add into the mix the fact that the Quest 3 comes with a variable IPD. Now that dial underneath allows you to tune it anywhere between 58 and 71 millimeters, so you can move the lenses to exactly the right distance apart to match your eyes. Compare that to the Quest 2, which did allow you to have different IPD settings, but they were just 3. 58, 63 and 68. So you've got much more adjustability on the Quest 3. So putting that all together in a single package, and you've just got a picture quality on the Quest 3 that does look a lot better than it does on the Quest 2. That's not to say that the Quest 2 doesn't look good, it's just outshined by the Quest 3. Now on top of that, if you happen to do mixed reality with the Quest 3, well, these two full color cameras at the front and that depth sensor give you full color pass-through of your environment, and you can see those in your lenses or in the picture when you're looking through the headset. As opposed to the cameras on the Quest 2 that only allow you to see in low resolution black and white. Now that makes a big difference when you start to look at mixed reality gameplay, which we'll get to in a bit. And audio quality is just as important as picture quality, if not more so. On the Quest 2, you've got these holes right down the bottom of the back of the arm, and that's the only part where the audio can come out of. And the Quest 3 sees a 40% increase in volume over the Quest 2. There's 2 ports where the audio comes out of. There's sort of one at the bottom back, and there's one at the top, more or less in the middle as well. So that's making audio distribute around your head more rather than being more direct, so you get a more enveloping surround, it's a more clearer sound, and yes, it goes louder too. Battery life wise, the Quest 2 has 2 to 3 hours of battery life, although it does veer far more to the 2 hours than the 3. For the Quest 3, it's a little more complicated, which is causing some people to report generally not being very happy with the life of the battery in the Quest 3. Even Meta themselves, whilst they do say overall you get 2.2 hours of battery life out of the Quest 3, that's an average. If you're watching media, they say you can get 2.9 hours of battery life out of this. If you're playing games, they say you can get 2.4 hours out of this. But if you're doing productivity, which is largely using a lot of the pass-through, so the full depth sensor cameras and the depth sensor and everything else, they say you can only get 1.5 hours of battery life out of the Quest 3. So you can get somewhere between 1.5 and 2.9 hours of battery life, depending upon what you're doing. Now, I'm not saying that to put you off buying the Quest 3, I'm just trying to give you realistic expectations of the battery life that you're going to get out of this headset. Now you can get head straps with external batteries that you can add on to this head strap as well, which definitely increases the battery life. So it is definitely something I'd recommend getting as soon as you've got a Quest 3, if that's the headset you decide to buy. So what does that all mean in real world terms? Because it sounds like a pretty slam dunk win for the Quest 3 being so much better in a lot of areas than the Quest 2. And technically, yes, it's the better headset. In real world testing, in real world scenarios, when you actually put the headset on and start playing games, it's not as big a difference as you'd think. At least not yet. Because all the games that you can play on the Quest 3, you can actually play on the Quest 2 as well. And there are no exclusive games that are Quest 3 only. And most games play exactly the same on the Quest 2 as they do on the Quest 3. There are some games like The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners and Red Matter 2 that are releasing Quest 3 optimized versions, which will give you more graphical detail in game. But other than that, every game that you can play on the Quest 3, you can play on the Quest 2 as well. It's just you might get more graphical detail on the Quest 3 with some of them. Moving on to mixed reality though, and this is where the differences between the two headsets really start to show, because those full color pass-through cameras at the front with the depth sensor just changes the game with certain types of games. Take Cubism, for example, which is a puzzle game. They've gone full on pass-through, so you can literally feel like you're sitting on your couch just playing with a puzzle on the table in front of you. Or try something like Miracle Pool. Now that's a game that's free at the moment. It's actually an app lab, and I've been playing this for a while now. That's awesome because it literally puts a full-scale pool table in your living room. And this is where the power of mixed reality really starts to come into it, because you really do start to integrate the virtual and the real world into this augmented mixed reality. And done well, it is great. It's just early days for mixed reality at the moment, but I am starting to like what I see. Moving on to PC VR gaming, and both of these headsets can be connected to a PC either over a USB cable or wirelessly using something like Virtual Desktop or AirLink. And once connected, both of them perform well as a PC VR headset. However, the extra resolution and the clarity in the lenses on the Quest 3 does make it a better visual experience than the Quest 2. There's no issues with playing PC VR games on the Quest 2, it just looks clearer on the Quest 3. So with so many enhancements on the Quest 3 over the Quest 2, it should make the Quest 3 a no-brainer buy, right? Well, you do pay for those improvements, and quite a lot compared to the Quest 2. The 128 gig base models of the Quest 2 and the Quest 3 sees a $200 price difference between the two. $299 for the Quest 2 and $499 for the Quest 3. Move up to the higher storage models, and the 256 gig storage model on the Quest 2 is $429 US, whereas on the 512 gig model of the Quest 3, that is $649. So there is a pretty significant price difference between the two. The price blow on the Quest 3 is helped a little bit because at the moment you do get Asgard's Wrath 2 for free, and that is a $60 game in its own right, but you also get 6 months free access to MetaQuest Plus, which is their gaming subscription service, where you get 2 free games every month. So at the end of the day, with all things considered, which of these headsets should you get? Well, I think it depends. If you just want to get into the world of VR and don't want to spend a fortune, or you already have a Quest 2, then I would say either buy or stick with the Quest 2, because at the moment you can still play all the games on the Quest 2 as you can with the Quest 3, so you're not really missing out on much. Even new games coming out right now like Ghostbusters, well, they look exactly the same on the Quest 2 as they do on the Quest 3. However, if you can afford it, I would say go with the Quest 3, because it looks better, it sounds better, it's just got more power, the games are just going to get better as they start to utilize that better power, so you are future-proofing yourself a little bit better. I will, however, leave purchase links to both of these in the description down below, so you can go check them out for yourself. If you want to check out some great accessories to go with the Quest 3, then be sure to check out the link up here. If you have enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and share it. Consider subscribing if you're not. Thanks for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.